Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that this event is being held on the unceded lands of the Squamish Nation. We are grateful to work, live, and play in their territory. And in recognition of this fact, it is my privilege to invite Suesia Spakwas of the Squamish Nation to formally open this event.
I don't really need this, but welcome to Squamish Nation territory. My name is Cecilia. I'm a member, elder of the Squamish Nation. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you for this wonderful evening. And I wish the candidates all the best of luck, each and every one of you. And let us all be of one mind, one soul, one heart. We're all here for one reason, Squamish. Hosiam.
Ooh, scared to move it. Hal Squile, Dominic Quiansna, Nethlen, Soesia Kushaman, Tanachin Tla, Stopmasochomeo, Skohotmashoth, Amanaxton Squaloin, Ailton Sequetos, Chenquementomi. So what I just said, loosely translated into English, is good day, my name is Dominique. My ancestral name is Soesia. I come from the Stopmas village and the Skohotmish Nation. I am a respectful person and all my relations. And this is my nephew Dale. Go ahead, Gwen.
No wonder why. Hi, my name is Gwen Harry. I am from Squamish Nation, and my ancestral name is Quaqualia, and this is my son Dale and my daughter Paisley.
So Hosiam eoch tnoia min heute ans Zoesia Spakwas hasquals stays hakten squan eoch tnoia metrich hoitich siam hoitich gehotens behem and hoitich chishet timel to Hier Lam to Brennan Park Recreation Center. On behalf of the Squamish Nation, I'd like to welcome you to our territory. We have 6 livable villages here in Squamish. We have 3 livable villages in North Vancouver. So for those of you that don't know, I'm going to paint you a picture. So we neighbor the Musqueam Nation down south. North of us, we neighbor the Lillooet Nation. So prior to 2010, the 2 nations signed a memorandum of understanding stating that, yes, we have overlapping lands. And yes, we are not going to fight over it. We are going to share it. So that's why we have the Squamish Lillooet Cultural Center. So who has not been to the Squamish Lillooet Cultural Center? Put up your hand. Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so, and on the east side of us, we neighbor Tsleil-Waututh Nation. You guys may know that, the old saying, they were called the Burrard Indian Band. Traditionally, we're family. Politically, we're a totally different nation. And on the west side of us, on the other side of Howe Sound, we neighbor the Sechelt Nation. So again, I just want to thank the district and everyone else involved that allowed us to be here to share who we are and where we come from. And we have the honors of living in the oldest village of the Squamish Nation, and we live in Stopmas. Stopmas means shelter, and what shelters us is the second biggest monolith granite rock in the world, and we all know that as the awesome. There are many legends that revolve around that rock. Many. 360 degrees around us, there are many legends. How many of you guys know Kalkalay? Put up your hand. How many of you guys know the 2-headed sea serpent? Put up your hand. How many of you guys know I come to a blank. Yo, you guys know that one too, eh? Yeah. The 2-headed sea serpent, Kalkalay, and how the chief came to be. How many of you guys heard of that one? Awesome, because, you know, I've been sharing that story faithfully every time I get up and speak, because it was late L.B. Andrews, the one that shared that story with me. He says, our people, we were nomads in our own community, and we would follow the food, and we happened to be in a village called Chalkwelp, which you guys now know as Gibsons. We were coming northbound towards Squamish. And this couple, they just got married. Oh, they were so happy. They were holding hands and they're skipping way ahead of the community. The chief says, you have to come back. You have to stay with the community. And do you think they listened? No, they were so happy in their own married life. They were holding hands, they're skipping way ahead of the community. So the chiefs went and talked to the Highs brothers. They were the transformers. They had so much power. So they transformed the husband as the chief. We all know his head is close to North Vancouver. His feet goes into Ballycliff. His wife's on the other side, the west side of Squamish River. Her head is close to Whistler and her feet is close to Vancouver. So you guys all know that term, Castle Rock. So Castle Rock, that's the thorn right here on her ankle. So you can clearly see her when you guys are at Starbucks, downtown Squamish. And that was so funny because I heard a story. I had a room and boarder he's Navajo, and he's the one that told me that E.T. looks at us every day. Did you guys know that? When you guys are coming from here and you guys are driving towards Vancouver, you'll see E.T. And he's on the second and the third peak. So he's been watching us every day. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to sing a welcome song. And this song, you guys have probably heard of it. I sing it every time when we come up here. So when we have a welcome song, when we're all in here in this sacred building, this beautiful building, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule just to witness what's going to take place. And tonight is all these beautiful gentlemen and ladies that are running for position for 4 years to represent Squamish. I was ready to say Squamish Nation. Oops. To represent Squamish. And for them to work together so they can work with the community spiritually, physically, intellectually, creatively, culturally, emotionally, and mentally. Because there are so many things that surround us that Squamish needs to be helped and worked on. So we are going to break the groups into 4 sections. So the first half up here, on my left-hand side, you guys are going to represent the bald eagle. Can you say Spakwas? When I say Spakwas, get up and dance, you're going to dance like bald eagles. The bald eagles are the ones that fly the highest. They are the ones that pass the message to our Creator. Why do the eagles come to Squamish? Anyone? Huh? The fish? They come here every year just to get counted. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Okay, so the second half on the back, you guys are going to represent our four-legged animals. Can you guys say Dakaya? When I say Dakaya, get up and dance, you're going to dance like the wolves. And don't forget to shake your tail. Ow! On this side, you guys are going to represent the killer whale. Can you say yo-yos? When I say yo-yos, get up and dance, you're going to honor the sea wolf. We call it the sea wolf. You guys may know it as the killer whale or orca. So what the sea wolf does in the sea, what the wolf does on land, they teach us to work as a community, as a unit, as one, as a team. Okay, the last one, or the ones in the back there, can you guys say mechach? When I say mechach, get up and dance, you guys are going to be the bear. Don't forget to growl. Don't forget to howl. Don't forget to whistle like an eagle. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so the bear, they teach us to protect. Ain't no stronger one than the mother. You are between the baby and the mother. The mother is total protectors. And I'm going to tease these guys behind us, all the candidates. You guys are going to be wachas. Can you say that? All right, you guys are, no, actually you're going to be skeetlaw. Can you say skeetlaw? You guys are going to be beavers because you guys are going to be workaholics. You guys are going to work. So you guys are going to pretend you're gnawing on a stick and don't forget to swing your hips. Woohoo! So are you ready, Squamish? Are you ready, Squamish? You guys can hoot, you can holler, you can cheer, you can clap, especially to the nation that's dancing on the floor. So here we go. Okay, come close to the mic. Bald eagles, get up and dance. Good job, eagles. Ready, Dakaya wolves, get up and dance. Hi-yo, ho, ho, hee-ho, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, yo, hey, yo, ho, ho, hee-ho, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Good job, wolves. Ready, yo-yos, killer whales, get up and dance. Hi-yo, ho, ho, hee-ho, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, ho, ho, hee-ho, hey, yo, hey. Good job, yo-yos. Ready, mechach bears, get up and dance. Hey yo ho ho, hee ho, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, ho ho, hee ho, hey yo, hey. Good job, bears. Okay, let's really cheer on the candidates, you guys. Okay, ready? Skeet, loud beavers, get up and dance. Awesome. Good job, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening with all your awesome questions, all your concerns and your ideas, and being creative and being as one. Here for Squamish to empower each and every communities here, all the ways from Stopmas all the ways up to Chikai. So, Hachten Squam, Chikwatimitso Tzitop, it's good in my heart. We'll see 'em.
Thank you, Tzvezia, for those words and for reminding us that although there's a great deal of unfinished business in this country, those burdens can be carried with joy as well. As we all know, in this election we have 3 candidates running for the position of mayor and 10 candidates running for 6 positions on the district council. In order to keep things a little more organized this evening, we're going to split things into two halves. In the first half, we'll be hearing from council candidates, and in the second half, we'll be hearing from mayoral candidates. Both halves of the event will unfold in the same way. Every candidate will have an opportunity to give an opening statement, and then we're going to open the floor to questions. We'll be having some questions from the sponsors of the event, but in order to make more time for questions from the floor, they have agreed that only one of their questions will go to all candidates. The rest of their questions will go to one candidate only. That way we'll have much more time for questions from the audience this time out. When it comes to questions from the audience, there are 4 ways to ask your question. You can stand up at one of our 2 floor microphones to ask a question. If you're unable to stand and wait in line at the microphones, you can hold up your hand and Carrie will come to you with our roving microphone. If you prefer not to speak and be seen as you ask your question, you can also write your question on a cue card and give it to volunteers at the tables at the back and sides of the room. Or you can use Slido and your mobile phone to put questions up on that screen. You can do that by scanning the QR code on the screen or around the room, or going to slido.com and entering that number 408-9615. If you go onto the website, you can also vote up questions that have already been submitted or vote down questions that have been submitted. So that lets us see which questions more people want to see answered, which is very helpful. So 4 different ways you can ask questions tonight. I will say that if you are asking a question at a microphone, be it of the fixed or roaming variety, please keep your question to about 30 seconds because we are on a very tight time frame here, trying to make sure everybody has as much time as possible to answer questions. Very long statements of opinion that have a question mark at the end, or questions that are inappropriate or derogatory or call into the integrity of the candidates will just be ruled out of order. We'd like to keep the the focus here on the issues and try to keep our gaze quite firmly on the challenges facing the community. Now, one of my jobs as moderator, of course, is to try to hear from all of the candidates equally. So when you're asking a question, you can direct your question to a particular candidate if you like, or you can leave it open, and I will then direct it to whomever we have not heard from very much yet. And I'll be moving back and forth across different channels of asking questions to try to even that out as well. Because we want to hear from as many people as possible, the candidates have 45 seconds to answer your questions. I'm sure there's a joke about Twitter and political discourse here, but I don't think I can make it in 45 seconds, so I won't. But what that means is that as you're asking your questions, please think about the fact that they don't have a whole lot of time to answer them. So, what will you do to solve climate change? Not a great question. Hard to answer that in 45 seconds. What is the most important thing the district council can do to take action on climate change? Easier to answer in 45 seconds. So, if we all work together, we can get through as many questions from the audience as possible and have a lively debate. And then once we're through our time for questions, we will have an opportunity for closing statements for all the candidates as well. And then we'll pivot to the next half of the event. In addition to having more emphasis on questions from the audience this year, we've added 2 new changes to the rules to make it possible for candidates to challenge one another. What we can do is, first of all, after they have answered a question, they can use what we call a wild card to direct that same question to anybody else on the stage. And that person will have 30 seconds to answer it. Alternately, they can use a rebuttal card. If somebody else has answered a question and they want to speak on that subject, they can hold up their rebuttal card and they will get the floor for 30 seconds to speak to that same question or the answer we just heard. Each candidate has 1 each of these tools, and they don't have to use them. We'll see how that plays out. Now, one of the realities of politics in a small town is that we have a lot of connections to one another. In my case, I actually have relationships with a good number of the people we'll see on stage here tonight. So I'd like to start by just laying them out and explaining how we're dealing with that. I have worked at Quest with Andrew Hamilton, Christina Walsh, and Lauren Greenlaw. Andrew's an occasional consultant with my consulting firm, though not at the moment. In fact, I think the last gig we did together, he was running the technical side for one of these debates, and we were doing it online. I bet you wish you were doing that now. I worked closely with Gord Addison and less closely with Chris Pettengill on research. I've lived in a strata that Mike Young ran, and like a lot of people in town, I've bought a bike or two from Armand Hereford. And that's politics in a small town. And it's what makes small towns a wonderful place to live. What we do with that, of course, is we acknowledge them, and then we level the playing field with some clear rules. And how we're doing that tonight, very straightforward. Like the candidates themselves, I have not seen any questions in advance. The questions come from you and the sponsor organizations. All I'm doing is reading the cards as they come up. The order in which candidates will speak tonight was drawn at random at the back of the room right before we began. And two volunteers, Nicole and Heather, are managing the questions both on Slido and in the cards, so that when they come to me, all I get to do is just pick which candidate is getting whichever question based on how many people have spoken. The only exception we're making to our level playing field policy concerns Adrian Byrne, who's not here this evening. His wife is having a baby, quite possibly as we speak. And this means two things. And applause is definitely due for that. It does more for her, I think, than for Adrian, but never mind. First of all, on October 16th, we can congratulate Adrian no matter what happens. That's great. And second, I think we can all agree that he has somewhere much more important to be right now, and so that's where he is. So his opening and closing statement have been submitted by video, but he won't be here to take questions tonight. And we thought it was best if everybody understood why. I think it's a pretty important reason. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our candidates for council in this election. Starting on my left, closest to me, we have Gord Addison, followed by Eric Anderson. They are not, in fact, the same person. Yes. Gord Addison, Eric Anderson, John French, Lauren Greenlaw, Andrew Hamilton, Rajan Hans, Chris Pettengill, Jenna Stoner, and Christina Walsh. Thank you very much, candidates. We're going to kick things off with opening statements, and our randomly drawn speaking order has the first candidate giving their opening statement as Chris Pettengill. So, Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you everyone for taking an interest in politics in our community. It's really great to see all of you here. I'm Chris Pettengill, and I'm running for another term on Squamish Council. I'll leave the start of my introduction out, but my partner and I moved to Squamish just before the Olympics, and it was our dream to move here. We've been renters here ever since. My partner works as an elementary school teacher at Garibaldi Highlands Elementary, and I work for a local tech startup. At this time last election, there was 5 of us, and now we're about 120 people. We have people across Canada, the US, and even in Europe, but we're still based out of Squamish. A community like Squamish, there's always going to be things to improve and challenges to tackle. And I think our council has done a lot of really important work, but clearly there's still so much to do, and I want to be part of that. So that's why I'm running again. I'm focused on housing and affordability, livability, and safety and security. With your support for another term for Chris Pettengill, we can work on these things together and make Squamish a better place for everyone. Thank you.
Very much, Chris. Our next speaker is Christina Walsh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Walsh, and I'm running for Squamish Council. I have worked in politics for the past 3 years as my job as constituents liaison for MP Patrick Weiler here in the Sea to Sky corridor. But the work that I've been doing has been at the national level, and I want to make more of an impact here in Squamish, in my community. That is what's really important to me. I'm running for council because I want to see more women represented in government, and I want to see more women like myself at the table. I've been given a front row seat to the orders of government and the work that's being done across the Sea to Sky, but I want to be at the table now. I don't want to be in the room anymore. I want to continue to advocate to the provincial and federal government and the needed conversations, especially in the areas of childcare, transit, and small business. So I look forward to your questions tonight, and thank you for being here tonight, and look forward to it. Thank you.
Next in our speaking order, we have Jenna.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jenna Stoner, and I'm seeking your support for a second term on council. I decided to run for council 4 years ago for the same reason that I'm standing here before you tonight. I care deeply about this community. I know that the rate of change has felt overwhelming for many, myself included at times. But I believe in the power of our community to come together to create the vibrant, resilient, and strong community that I think we all want Squamish to be at the end of the day. There are some big challenges facing our small town: the climate emergency, affordable housing, economic development, to name a few. I'm extremely proud of the tangible progress we've been able to make in the last 4 years, and I'll be the first to admit that there's more work to do. These big challenges cannot be addressed by fancy campaign promises off the cuff. They require a strong commitment to being strategic, to being steady, and for collaboration. And that's what I promise to bring to the council table if I'm reelected, so we can work on these big challenges together. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Andrew Hamilton.
Thank you very much for coming. My name is Andrew Hamilton, and I'm seeking a seat as councillor. My profession right now is as a physics professor at Quest University. I grew up in small town Ontario, lived in Toronto for my teenage years, don't hold that against me. I did my PhD at the University of Alberta, then lived in Chicago, Geneva, and Cape Town, doing physics teaching and research, before coming to Squamish in 2016 with my wife and Kelly and 2 children, Cohen and Fraser. The experience of living in other cultures and languages and places has humbled me and taught me to listen carefully to other perspectives, because there's a lot you can learn from people who think differently from you. My political views tend to be left-leaning. I would call myself an environmentally aware person, perhaps not an environmental activist. I do believe that anthropogenic emission of greenhouse gases are causing our climate to change in ways that will be devastating. But I did drive my Dodge Caravan. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lauren Greenlaw. I am a geologist and mother, thankfully living with my family on the unceded territories of the Squamish Nation. I'm running for council because I would really like to advocate for people in need in my community. I have a little bit of an eclectic career path. I graduated with a Bachelor of Engineering in geology and started my career working as a geologist, kind of in and around the mining industry. I went back to do a master's in geochemistry at UBC, and since then I have worked as a radio show host, I've been a consultant, and I've also been a teacher at Quest. From my professional background, I've really developed a lot of useful skills, including system scale thinking and analysis, collaborative problem solving, and creative problem solving as well. But I've also gained a lot of important skills through motherhood, such as compassion, empathy, patience, and an ability to listen. And I'm used to people needing stuff from me, like, all the time. So I feel like these are really useful skills to bring to City Hall.
Next in our list, Rajan Hans.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rajan Hans, and I'm running to serve Squamish as your councillor. I've had great pleasure in listening and engaging with our community and building a platform which addresses many of our concerns. My reasoning for seeking a seat is simple. It is the best way for me to serve a community I was born and raised in and now have grown up to love. I do not want to look back 20 years from now and wished I had raised my hand and contributed some ideas for issues that are facing Squamish. I want to pursue collaboration with all levels of government, the Squamish Nation, our school board, and community groups to get the right solutions. I want to bring a fresh perspective to the table and help make positive change. My generation is the future of this town, and I intend on being a forward-thinking voice. Let me get to work for you and build on what we have and make Squamish a stronger, safer, and better connected community. Thank you.
Next on our list, I have Gord Addison.
Hi there, I'm Gord Addison. I'm a 26-year resident of Squamish. I kind of came for the climbing and stayed for the biking. Over the years here, I have run a business, raised a family, and followed local politics very closely. Currently, I'm a digital marketing director at Marwick Marketing. That's a full-time job, but always keen to follow things and work on public policy. My key campaign platforms, the things I'm really focused on, are a more balanced growth in Squamish, making sure that development pays for growth. So often, the developers aren't paying the community contributions I think they should be paying. And I also have a 3-point affordable housing plan that will cover the spectrum. We need to take care of the most vulnerable, we need to get rentals, and we really need to get people to work towards home ownership, similar to Western model. There's other models like that. Thank you.
John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doug. I was born and raised in Squamish, grew up free range on Braemar Drive North in the Garibaldi Highlands, and in my introductory remarks I want to touch on 2 things, community and experience. I remember what community looked like when I was in my late teens and early 20s. We were connected, we all knew each other. We played baseball together, soccer. I knew the Valley Cliff kids because of my youth sports. We don't quite have it the way that we used to. And every vote I've made over the last 4 years and intend to make over the next 4 comes back to community. What does it bring us together? How does it bring us together as a town? Experience. I have 4 years on council, and before that, I covered, as a journalist, Squamish Council, along with the Sea to Sky Corridor, the rest of the Pemberton, Whistler, and the Sunshine Coast. So I know what it takes to make decisions and make a community work. On October 15th, re-elect John French.
And for our last opening statement of the night, Eric, to you.
Thank you. Eric Anderson, seeking re-election, unfinished business. Dealing with growth will be a big theme tonight and for this election. My key theme in dealing with growth, my priority and value, is to apply definitions of smart growth that fit Squamish, are right for Squamish, right with nature, meet our landscape, our situation and circumstances, not West Broadway or Chicagoland. We're out of balance in certain key areas, housing, jobs, infrastructure, amenities. We need to connect the dots in this picture. Resigning ourselves to be an expensive, long-distance suburb is not a necessary fate, or a good one. Let's be sure to protect our options. We can do more than offer the rest of the world a place to live and a place to play. We can do more than this. In order to accomplish this, we all need a seat at the table through our organizations and as citizens. And this is what I hope we can improve on over the next term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates, both for your statements and for your scrupulous respect of time. I haven't had to be too rude to anybody yet, but the night is young, and hope springs eternal. I'd like to turn to some of our sponsors now to ask questions. We're going to start with Abby Magendie, who's the president of the Squamish Chamber, who can direct a question to the candidate of her choice.
Good evening, everybody. I was going to leave that to you, Doug, because this question is for a new candidate, not an incumbent, and I didn't want to choose, so you can randomly select whilst I am reading the question. This will make everyone listen. How will you balance the need for housing, employment lands, and community services with community views on growth?
Well, it was nice of you to start with an easy question, Abby. Following our speaking order, the first non-incumbent we have is Christina Walsh. So, Christina, I'll let you take that easy question from Abby.
Question? Is that okay?
Absolutely. How will you balance the need for housing, employment lands, and community services with community views on growth?
That's a really good question. I'm going to be very honest. That's a really big question, and that's probably, honestly, that's not something I've thought about in that big of scope. So I think it would be working with community partners. We now have the Squamish Housing Society and the community service partners and service partners that we have. I'm going to have to go to the experts in Squamish to be able to understand where I understand we know where the pain points are, but working together and collaborating and bringing everybody together to be able to work on this moving forward, because that's going to be a big task for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. I've just been reminded that having made a big deal about Adrian and his video, I then forgot to include it in our opening statements. So, fortunately, Nicole is going to call that up for us now, and Adrian will give us his opening statement virtually.
Together in the future. Hello. I want to commend all the candidates for council and for mayor on the stage tonight. I realise I'm not there with you, but we are all here because we care deeply about our community and our democracy. I also really want to recognise the families of all the candidates tonight. Thank you for lending your loved ones to this campaign. It is a challenging period for candidates being away from their family. But very important work. My name is Adrian, and I moved to Squamish in 2016, where I later met my partner on the Sea to Sky gondola. And like many in town, we are about to expect our first child imminently, which is why I'm not there, because I've pre-recorded this. I'm likely in the hospital awaiting delivery of our baby daughter. And she is really my inspiration for running for council.
Well, one nice thing is I don't have to be rude to him in person at 1 minute. All right, well, thank you for the reminder that I had left Adrian out. I'm glad that we managed to get his opening statement in, at least the first minute thereof. I'd like to get back onto our track here with questions from partner organizations. The next I have on my list is Kirby Brown, who's the chair of Tourism Squamish. Oh, we have a yellow card. Excellent. And is this a rebuttal? Oh, the wild card. Excellent. First one of the night. And to whom would you like to direct Abby's question? Christina? Rajan, Abby's question. Over to you.
I was waiting for that one. Sorry, can I hear the question?
I would have been impressed if you didn't need to hear it again. How will you balance the need for housing, employment lands, and community services with community views on growth?
I think this all comes down to land use planning. Creating neighborhood plans is very important in urban planning for us to look at what we have in terms of land and where we're going to place our density, where we're going to place our employment lands, where we're going to have purpose-built rentals, and where we're going to have park space, sidewalks, and walkability that encompasses a neighborhood. And I think it really goes down into building strong policy around neighborhoods and continuing in the current OCP model of building neighborhood plans for all of our different neighborhoods. Thank you.
No other wild cards? Okay, great. In that case, Kirby, over to you.
Thanks, Doug, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. The past 4 years have been challenging for democracy worldwide, and no different than right here in Squamish, where we saw council close chambers and have to take decision-making more indoors than taking it to the people, as would have been our tradition. We saw work shift onto the shoulders of staff and council more distinctly than we have in previous terms. So my question is, if elected, how will you return to the principles of true democracy, open up council chambers, and re-engage the public in the process to drive down cynicism and increase the quality of decision-making at the hall? And I'm going to direct this one to Eric Anderson, because he's got his eyes closed.
Thank you, Kirby. Something I mentioned already is a seat at the table, and sometimes we don't even have a table, or there's been tables missing in action. A lot of, and this also relates to the land use planning questions, a lot of the knowledge that needs to be brought to the table are unfamiliar to other folks that would be at the table. It's important to identify those stakeholders, and that stakeholder identification and having that as a commitment to ensure that there is that bringing together of different voices, different perspectives, and different knowledge. And this is going to apply to the question you've addressed to us, Kirby, but also to the land use question. So my key message here, we can do a better job to have a governance philosophy that is committed to seats at the table and the tables where they need it.
For the rest of the evening, I'm going to give everybody a sidelong glance. Hey, there we go. And we are taking a rebuttal, I presume.
That's correct.
Very good. All right, the floor is yours.
I just want to articulate that I actually think our council has become more transparent than it ever has before. We have online meetings for the first time. You don't have to come to council chambers at 6 p.m. with your kids in tow. You can join virtually or a hybrid meeting. Our acoustics in our room are above and beyond what they were, so you can watch our video recordings and not question what it was that somebody said. So I actually think we've come a really long way to making our government more open. We had coffee with councillors. The mayor had a monthly open meeting. So those were there. I think the challenge that we had and why we're not seeing it not just in our community but more broadly.
Thank you very much, Jenna. That is time. One advantage of not being up for election is that there's no consequences to me of being a jerk like this. Thank you very much, Jenna. Thank you very much, Kirby. Chad Hubbs, Vice President of the Downtown Squamish Business Improvement Association, is up next. For the next
Hey
question.
guys, thank you again for being here. This question is for Gord Addison. What are your long-term parking solutions for downtown Squamish, and how will you go about implementing them?
Thank you. One of my key platform planks is no more parking variances. Developers need to pay for and provide the parking for the people who live there. People have, big vehicles. They have more than one vehicle. I went through a phase with 2 kids with 2 cars. It happens. And then, so I think if we just stop making it worse, we're getting better. A parkade is be great, desirable, but it's I think a $10 million minimum ask in that, and we got a lot of things on the agenda. So just stop making it worse is my start. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gord. All right, and our last question is from Stephen Chua, and this will be to all candidates. As I said earlier, the sponsor organizations decided that they would go with one question to one candidate, with the exception of this one, because we thought it was quite important. So, Stephen, over to you.
Hello, we all live in a small town. A lot of you have small businesses, you work in institutions, you work in schools, you work in property management or real estate, and these are all things that can have a very big effect on the way you make your decisions if you are an elected official. You could benefit from some of that. I'm just curious to know how you plan on addressing those things. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about where your interests are and how you plan on alleviating any perceived conflicts of interest. Thanks.
We're going to take this question in the speaking order that we randomly drew. So, Chris, you have the first kick at the can.
Thank you. This one is maybe a little bit easier for me. The nature of our business is most of our market is in the U.S. and overseas. There's some in Canada, but in terms of my direct paycheck from my non-council job at the startup, there isn't actually a lot of interaction with what we're doing municipally. The one exception is office space. We have some office space in the business park, so if we need something like a temporary use permit or something like that, it would be a matter of declaring a conflict and stepping aside from that sort of decision. But I think that is one of the benefits of the job that I have. There isn't a lot of conflict with municipal business. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So up front, I would have two conflict of interest that would most likely arise. I work for Patrick Weiler, who is the MP, so I work for the federal government, so depending on funding and applications, there may be places where I would have to recuse myself. And the second is my husband works for the District of Squamish as utilities operator, and so there could be times, which is within the Public Works Department, that there'll be times where I'll have to recuse myself as, he is part of those decision making. So those would be two that would and could arise for me. Thank you.
Hello again. So for me, my other job outside of council is I work for an environmental nonprofit in fisheries and aquaculture, and it has absolutely no overlap with the District of Squamish. The only time I've had to recuse myself during this past term was in the early days when we were doing the community enhancement grants, and I used to volunteer on the board for the Squamish Climate Action Group, and so when that came forward, I'd recuse myself on those decisions. And my campaign is a grassroots campaign that is funded by myself as the top donor at $300, and I have some friends and family who have also supported me. They are all listed publicly for transparency's sake on my website, so if you want to know who's funding my campaign, you can find it at jennastoner.com.
Thanks. So as I said in my introduction, I work for Quest University Canada, and so I would recuse myself from any discussion on any questions relating to the zoning or related to Quest University Canada, like a decision that happened earlier in the current council's term about the zoning at Quest University. I also work occasionally with Politicos Research and would have no connection or I would completely recuse myself from any discussion about any bidding that Politicos Research might have on any things for the district. Thanks very much.
Hi, I don't have any known conflict of interest that I can think of. The only thing would be that I am on the board of directors of my children's school, and I would step down from that position. I am also solely funded by this guy right here. And I have not, I don't have any other interests that I'm operating for, and I don't actually foresee fundraising unless you guys want to fundraise for me. So yeah.
So for me, one of my side jobs is I'm a realtor. I think there may be a notion of a perceived conflict in that. A lot of my clients are close friends and family. Should any of those clients come forward as proponents in any district business, I will happily recuse myself and step aside. Aside from that, I would like to touch on that I think that this was becoming a realtor was a good way for me to expand on my knowledge of urban planning, land use, and different facets of the real estate industry. I think it's an important perspective to have on the table, especially when we're negotiating with developers and negotiating amenities that will be brought back into our community. Thank you.
I think what's absolutely most important, that if you're on Squamish Council, if you're working for Squamish, you're working for the people of Squamish. And that is something I'd always keep clear in my mind. In the past, for 2 of the 26 years I've lived here, I did work for Woodfibre LNG. Their vice president was an old friend of mine. He called me when he came to the project in town, and I learned a lot in that job. And I've picked up some contract work for the developments over the past on that, but very clearly, I've learned a lot in those jobs about how development works, and very clearly, if you're on Squamish Council, you're working for the people of Squamish.
I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm the sales manager for a local courier company. I work 4 days a week doing that when I'm not focused on District of Squamish work. If something that gets connected to my company becomes district business, I would certainly recuse myself. In the 4 years that I've been on council, I have never had the need to declare a conflict of interest because there just hasn't been anything that would warrant it. There's a property behind my townhouse that will eventually develop. It could potentially come before the Squamish Council in these next 4 years. If that's the case, I'll step aside. I too am a former wood fiber LNG employee, but I am fighting for an excellent tax deal out of that project for Squamish.
At the present time, my professional project involvement is in the cultural and heritage fields and don't present any issues for conflict of interest in my council role. My background is employment is in the transportation and fisheries area. These provide me with insights, but not bias. Since I've been a teenager, I've been involved with forestry and wood products, and not lately with employment, but involved and committed to forestry education and committed to education about wood products, and both as a climate action initiative. I believe in these sectors as climate action, and I will always remain committed to public education about these sectors. But again, that's not bias, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're now going to turn to questions from the floor. I have a big stack of cue cards. We have questions coming in virtually on Slido. I don't yet have a lineup at the microphones, but I'm officially announcing you can line up at the microphones now if you so choose. Or if you don't wish to, you can hold up your hand and our roving mobile microphone will come to you. I'm going to start with the top question on the cards, and then we'll kind of move through. Thank you, sir, for being the first to step up to the microphone. We'll be with you in just a moment. Our first question from the audience coming in on a card. Given the lack of support from the neighborhood, how do you see the next stage of the Garibaldi Estates planning process? And going down my list of who has been most and least at bat, I'm going to pass this question to John.
Doug, can I just have that one more time, please?
You certainly can. Given the lack of support from the neighborhood, how do you see the next stage of the Garibaldi Estates planning process?
Okay, so it is a process, and it's clear, it's well documented, and I support that process. The process that we have been through was also clear, and I think it's been effective. We did pivot. We took feedback that we heard, and we added a step into the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood plan process to gather more data, more information, more feedback, and I think that was valuable, and I think it is ultimately going to make the plan stronger and better, having done that extra step and taken that extra care to make sure that everybody's voices are heard. And I support that neighborhood planning process. I think it's solid, and I'm looking forward to the ongoing consultation so that we can arrive at a strong plan.
Thank you very much, John. Sir, over to you at the microphone.
No, it's on? Okay. My name is Matt Blackman, founder of the Squamish Alternative Energy Group. And in 2018, Karen made a very distinct promise to make single-family homes more difficult, if not impossible, in Squamish. And she's done a very good job of doing that. My background's in real estate, and I decided to do a little research to see what effect that's had, because I was told it was to help make housing more affordable. So basically, since 2017, so I used data from 2017 to now, August to August, and Squamish single-family homes, which I'll call detached homes, are up 90% over that period. So I thought, to compare it, let's see what's happened in the nearest community that's not Whistler, which is Pemberton. Single-family homes are up 46%. And here in Squamish, townhouses are up 32%, and condos are up 35%. In Pemberton, they're up basically 39 and 41%. So I guess I'll direct this at you, Rajan. How would you help make a single-family detached home, which was my dream when I came here, more affordable to people, because they've become way less affordable over the last 4 years? Thank you.
I think it all comes down to engaging with the community and seeing at large what we want as a community. And from my engagement process so far, single-family homes are an important standpoint from a lot of members of the community. And I think with good planning, we can ensure that we have policy in place which does support the development of single-family housing, partially in small lot subdivisions. I think the days of subdividing new half-acre lots is gone, but I do believe we can find a medium, and we can shift it to smaller lot subdivisions so people can still have room for their families and still provide an affordable way to have a single-family home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajan. I see you have another question at the rear microphone. Please, go ahead.
Do I need to say my name?
Not if you don't want to.
Question for all of you related to climate change, and I'll keep it really simple, and maybe you could all answer it just with a yes or a no. Do you believe that protecting aquatic ecosystem function is a critical part of our climate resiliency? And that's our rivers, our streams, our estuaries, and how sound. Just a yes or no.
Yes, I don't see how any candidate could really answer no to that question. Would you like to get one candidate to answer in more detail, perhaps?
Gord Addison.
All right, Gord, over to you.
I think it's very, very important, actually, regardless of climate change. This is our ecosystem. We, with the Squamish Nation, are protective of this area. It's amazing. The interconnected neighborhoods, the riparian areas are, I think, a precious way to connect neighborhoods. And so, yeah, I think it's full stop important to protect our riparian areas.
Thank you, Gord. Now, I'm mindful of the Slido questions as well, but I'm going to go to a few more here just to even it out, because that top Slido question, I think, has pretty much got your name on it there, Rajan. So the next question I have from cards is to any candidate. It is, how important are wildlife corridors for bear and salmon, and how will you advocate for them? And looking at my list here, Lauren, I'm going to pass this question to you.
Can I get you to say it one more time?
Absolutely, yes. How important are wildlife corridors for bear and salmon to you, and how will you advocate for them?
Okay, so first of all, I would need to consult extensively with biologists in the community. But yes, absolutely, it's extremely important. I mean, salmon has been a way of life for the people for time immemorial. And this is an incredibly important resource for our entire society. Bears too, I mean, like, we're seeing a ton of bear activity in our neighborhood, and I really wonder if it's because we're encroaching on their habitat, and with climate change, creating even more stressful environments for them, and they'll just become more and more in our space in a dangerous way that threatens them. So absolutely, yes, I'd have to talk to people about what they look like and how to implement them, but absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Okay, turning over to the Slido questions. Andrew, I'm going to toss this one to you. What is your position on the Chima lands?
Thank you very much. I live on Perth Drive, and I cycle on the Chima lands quite regularly. I do not have a support or not support of the Chima lands development because I haven't had all of the details. I don't know exactly what the plan is. I need to know that. I need to know what the impact on housing is going to be. Is it going to reduce the stresses on housing? Is it going to assist in housing affordability? How is it going to impact the trails? How is it going to impact the environment? All of those things need to be considered. So I am not against it, but I am certainly not, that's not the first thing I would look to do to increase housing affordability in Squamish.
Thank you, Andrew. And we have, I see you have a wild card. Do you want to rebut that and take the floor on that one? Oh, all right then. Usually that's for when you have been asked the question. You know what? Sure. Wild card, you can pass that question to Rajan Hans.
I'll take them all night, no problem. So for the Chima lands, again, as Andrew mentioned, this is a proposal that hasn't yet gone through all the consultation with the public. They have done preliminary consultations. Whether I don't have a position on it currently, but I do feel that we need to kind of start opening the conversation for these projects that are beginning to come to light. Extensive public consultation is the best way for us to get what we want as a community from all of these developments, and to ensure that we take into account all the different user groups that are using these lands and the community at large. And essentially to open the conversation and continue with extensive public consultation to see what we can get as a community from these major projects that are coming to town.
And that's time. Thank you very much. I'm told we have a question at the back from our roving microphone. So over to you.
My question is, how do you go about learning about and making decisions for Squamish when they don't affect you or your own lived experience? So things like daycares, downtown densification and parking, Brennan Park, mental health, unhoused and marginalized groups.
That is an excellent question. And Chris, currently showing you has the least airtime, so I'll pass that to you.
I think basically it's about being involved in your community, going to board meetings, going to community events, and making sure you're spending time downtown. I recently went to an electric bike. We live in the Highlands, but I bike downtown. I bike to work every day. I've been quite involved with Amped in the Park, and we've done some work with Helping Hands. So it's a matter of being really engaged and out in your community. It's one of the reasons why COVID was so challenging, because it was difficult to get engaged with all those groups. But I think that's the way you become part of the community. You don't stay separated from the community, and you talk to everyone, and then you learn what the experiences are.
Thank you very much, Chris. We have a few other questions from the floor microphones. The gentleman in the back, you've been waiting longest. Please, go ahead.
So my question is to all candidates. The question is...
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to just direct it to one of the candidates, please. Otherwise, it's a 10-minute process to answer the one question.
I guess like wildcard, any candidate can answer.
All right, I'll pass it to the person who spoke the least.
Okay. Do you support leasing a new municipal hall? If not, how will you build a new municipal hall?
Okay. Eric, I have you up for this question.
I think we need to keep the leasing option as a placeholder, if you like. We have not selected, the past council has not selected an option, but we've needed to think in our long-term planning, the 5-year financial plan, to make a plan. So that, in my own view, we need to keep the options open, and we need to be prepared, continue to do research. It is, of course, from any business person in the audience will be familiar with this, it's always an advantage to own the asset rather than leasing. So we will keep our minds open to this. Hopefully the new council will as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeriel Jacko. May I direct my question to the 4 current councillors?
We are asking you to pick a current councillor, please.
Could I ask 2?
Will you take one?
Okay, so whomever wants to answer this may do so out of the 4. On April 5th, 2022, first reading of the Chima Lands application was denied. How did you vote, and what were your reasons for voting the way you did?
So I expected this to be like Jeopardy, where they would rush to answer the question, but I think this is not that. Do we have a volunteer from our incumbents? Otherwise, I'll pick somebody. Okay, we have Chris and Chris, I saw your hand first. We'll go with you.
So I did not vote to proceed with hearing more about the Chima lands at this point in time. It will come online, and we probably will have development there, but we know the workload on our staff, and we know within the growth management boundary, we have Cheek-Eye development coming up, we have North Crumpet Woods, we have quite a lot of space within our growth management boundary and within our, actually testing our staff capacity to manage that. So that is something that we will look at. It's really important for affordability that we recognize the more we sprawl out, the higher taxes are. We need more infrastructure and therefore higher taxes per taxpayer. And so managing that growth management boundary and our staff capacity is really important, which is why Chima is something to look forward to in the future, and our OCP sets a good target for when to do that.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm just going to keep that with, we have a rebuttal. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I voted with the minority on this question, and the reasons are two. If we're going to make an evaluation of these lands, we're going to have 5 steps in the approval process for serious negotiation and evaluation. We're not committing to anything. And that goes from boundary expansion all the way to permitting. Lots of steps, lots of negotiation. But when I consider the arguments against moving with these lots 509, 510, I have to compare it with the areas where there's been so many trade-offs elsewhere in the community, environmental, employment lands, and so forth. I don't see a big issue with trade-offs relative to the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, moving along, I have another question on the cue cards. And the question is, what is your stance on LNG, a perennial favorite at Squamish debates? And Christina, I have you as next on the list for this.
I've said this out publicly already, but I do support wood fiber LNG. They are a part of our community, and they will be something that has been regulated and coming from the federal and provincial government. So at this point, I do know that the council will be able to work on temporary zoning and vacancies and what the planning will look like. But at this point, I do support the project.
And we have a rebuttal from Lauren.
So as I mentioned before, I am a geologist with well over 15 years of experience, over 20 actually. And I am very much against the LNG project for about 6 hours worth of reasons, but I will sum it up as we absolutely, as a species, need to get off of oil and gas. Absolutely. And fracking is an environmental catastrophe, and I say this as somebody with experience in the mining sector. It is a catastrophe.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Moving over to the Slido questions, and the volunteers will laugh. There was a comment about age brackets with Slido earlier, and I'm finding it hard to read the slide from here, so I guess I know what age bracket I'm in. I'm going to take the second one down. That is, the scale of candidates' housing plans matter. So how do candidates propose to increase our community's near-zero vacancy rate in a significant manner? And I'm going to pass that to Jenna.
Thank you so much for the question. Affordability in our housing challenge is immense, and we're not the only community that's dealing with this. In this past term, we've been able to create the Housing Society. We've secured over 100 affordable housing units and 300 purpose-built rental units that developers are building and paying for. So that's the drop in the bucket. We have more work to do, and how we do that is working with partners at the province, working with partners, our community service provider partners, to find land where we can build more purpose-built rental. We prioritize purpose-built rental through our development permit processing. We have other pieces that we can move. But this is a long-term goal, and we need everybody pushing in the same direction. Thank you.
And we have a rebuttal from Chris.
And this is going to be a supportive rebuttal. I think we, in addition to what Councillor Stoner said, we've heard from David Eby that his plans, if elected premier, is to erase single-family zoning and turn that into triplexes. And so part of what we need to do as a community is think about how we're going to manage this with the authority we do have. I think, livability is one thing we have to really think about in all of this as we...
Sorry, Chris, I'm afraid that's time.
That quick?
I know. Again, I have to say the number one piece of feedback we get after this event is people saying, I want more time for questions from the audience, but the time comes from somewhere, and I'm afraid that's where it comes from. I am looking for a question for Andrew Hamilton because he hasn't had a lot of time in the air. Do you have one for him?
Nope.
Okay. In that case, I got one for you here. Our councillors in this case one prospective councillor, prepared to put funding into the budget to resurrect the seniors' bowling centre that the district has not maintained and therefore is no longer usable? So the question, would you put funding into the budget to resurrect the seniors' bowling centre?
Yeah, lawn bowling. Can I ask how much? This is relevant. How much? Is it $1 million? I don't think so. We need to look at these questions in a balanced way. Is the Lawn Bowling Club promoting a social space for our community to be in? If yes, then it should be supported. If no, then it shouldn't. But the really question is, how much?
All right, I'm going to go back to the screen here, and the top question in terms of voting up is the Squamish First Group is touting proposals like a massive Brennan Park overhaul and a parking garage downtown. How will these be funded? And Rajan, you're the person carrying the banner up here, so that's going to go to you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much. I brought my glasses.
I'll quickly touch on the parking garage. I think we're in a time where land is very, very valuable and very scarce. I think it's very important that we work and collaborate to build our public amenities. For the parking garage, my idea is a multi-purpose facility, 2 levels of parking and 4 levels of office space. This could be an excellent opportunity for the municipal, space for the municipal hall, as well as overhauling for their school board. If we come together and bring the school board on board and use the district and the school board as great facilitators for the provincial government, we can build public-owned assets and resolve 3 of our big problems facing our community.
Thank you very much. We have about 5 minutes left for questions for our councillors so that we give the mayoral candidates enough time for their, I was going to say firing squad, that's a bit unkind. So we'll go to questions from the floor.
So to Lauren Greenlaw, you stated you're opposed to the WNG project. Does that mean you are running for council because you believe you can stop it?
Yeah, well, that would be lovely and amazing. Right now, the approach has essentially been death by 1,000 paper cuts. And unfortunately, as everybody knows, it's within the jurisdiction of the province. So we don't have a lot of options. We have some options to hold it back. But I mean, imagine how impactful it would be for our climate action goals as a municipality if we did not have that going in. But yeah, can I stop it? I would like to. Yeah.
Sir.
Thank you. I'm Herbert Wesley. I'm the president of the Squamish Senior Center Society. And my comment and question is to the candidate who spoke about the lawn bowling facility. This facility is in disuse because the district is failing to maintain the facility, which it had promised to do when a contractor provided it as a community amenity back in 2007. We, the society, have raised $27,000 in the past year towards the restoration of this facility. And we have met on a number of occasions with staff to make them contribute the physical labor to do the installation of this new material. And it's would be artificial turf, which would require a lot less maintenance, so that the cost to the district would be less. So given that information, that we have raised some money, we need you to do the work. Would you step forward and tell us that if you were to be elected to council, that you will support the project?
Thank you very much, Herbert. That is exactly the kind of information we need before we can have meaningful conversations. At this point in time, that absolutely sounds like a project that I would support being funded. Absolutely. I think that community space for everybody, community space for youth, community space for seniors, community space for anybody who feels that they need a space for community should be invested in. Thanks.
And we're over to our roving mic with Carrie.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to all of you on running. My name is Laura Prosco. I am the proud mom of a 12-year-old and also of a fur baby. I am wondering what your stance is on dog parks and what you see for the next 4 years on dog parks, and if we can get a dog park in the oceanfront development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
John,
and for...
Sorry, I don't have to ask you to hold to one question, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
John, I have you as having had the least time at the mic. Do you want to take this one?
I got it. My parents' dog Shelly will be very happy to hear my plans on this. We have a pilot project underway right now in the Mayoral Park area, the Garibaldi Highlands. I think it's going well. I haven't heard any negative feedback. We are next. Yes, yeah, lots has changed. There's signage, there's information. I'm not going to debate you. There's another area coming on. Don't remember off the top of my head where it is, but there are a number of places in Squamish where we will see new off-leash dog park areas. I support the process that's currently underway, and staff has been tasked with specifically looking for an area in the downtown for a larger dog park, so we're working on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. We can take one more, and then we'll go to closing statements. Sir, over to you.
Am I good?
Yep.
I have a question for Andrew Hamilton. Andrew, on the platform you have put forward in the chief, as well as here tonight, you've spoken about what will be your decision-making process. What steps will you take to be held accountable to your outlined decision-making process?
Thanks. I'll be held accountable to my decision-making process in the same way that all of the candidates here will be held accountable. We will be held accountable in 4 years' time. We will be held accountable by being part of the community that we want to live in. We are all here because we want to make this place better. The difference between some of our views may be the way we think we can approach that, the way we want to make it better. But I think that accountability to me comes from facing all of you here tonight. The thought that I might let you down is the hardest piece of accountability from my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Now, I know that there are more questions for these council candidates, but I'm also mindful that we have 3 candidates for mayor, and there's probably at least 2 questions for them, maybe 3. So I am going to keep things moving along. The candidates don't like it when I do this, but I will point out there's only so many exits to the room. And so when the night is over, you can probably intercept 1 or 2 of them, unless they all travel as a group. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn to candidates for some closing statements, and I won't forget Adrian's this time. And we're going to go in the same order that we drew in at the beginning of the night. So Chris, over to you for a closing statement.
Thank you. Again, Chris Pettingill, running for another term on Squamish Council. One of the other things I do in my limited free time is I volunteer for a youth development program, and we use board sports to help kids learn life skills. I was standing in the lift line with a young girl, and she said that she was really scared and excited. And she was excited because she'd been with her new foster family for 2 weeks. And that's the longest she'd ever had a family for. And she was really scared because at 2 weeks and the longest time, she was worried she was going to lose that family. And that has stuck with me as something where I recognize how incredibly fortunate we are here. And the reason I raise that is we have lots of stuff to work on, but we can't lose sight of how much we have achieved as a community. And a lot of the things we are facing today are the challenges of success. I see a lot of challenging times on the horizon with inflation and the war in Ukraine and lots of scary things. And so as we work through these things together, and thank you for being here and doing that with us, it's important that we remember our fortune and work well together as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Hi again. So I've lived in Squamish for 13 years, and this community is really important to me. Squamish has cared for me, and I deeply care for this community. And I want to show my girls that when you care about something, you put your hand up and you take care of it. It's important to show them that when you make a difference, it's important, and how important it is to live in service to your community. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not sure how to solve all the community concerns, but I'm ready to work, and I'm ready to team up with those who do and the experts in our community and to champion their work and their expertise. I'm ready to work for you and with you, and I promise to work hard. So thank you for listening tonight. Thank you for being here, and I encourage you all to have your voices heard on October 15th and vote for Christina Walsh. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for listening this evening. Contrary to what the internet might want you to think, I am not a career politician. I am not in the pocket of developers. I spoke about my conflicts of interest earlier. I have a job that I love outside of this. I am doing this because I love our community. I have a little 1-year-old and I'm a proud mom, and I care deeply about her future. That's why I'm standing here tonight. I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done in the last 4 years. Declaring a climate emergency and getting the support of my council, unanimous support, to declare that climate emergency and get the work going on our community climate action plan was a huge step for me. The stuff on our affordable housing, I can read you off a long list, and it goes on and on. Let's talk after this. But I just want to thank you all for being here, for doing your due diligence, being part of democracy, making sure you know who you're voting for, and please bring a friend with you when you go to vote, either in advance voting or on October 15th. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. You've done what I think is the most important thing that we can do, which is listen. The most important thing any of these councillor candidates or councillors when they become that can do for you is listen to you. Listen to the experts. Listen to the people who oppose them. Take those words. Debate. Have an informed debate. Make sure it's informed. Talk about issues on truths, not on internet rumors. And then come to a decision. Make a decision, make it timely, and make it transparent. That's what the council can do for you, and that's what I hope to be able to bring to the council. Thanks very much.
Hello again. So my campaign platform is centering around affordability, livability, and environment. And really what I mean by that is what will be in my mind every time I make a decision on council. I have learned so much over the past few weeks talking to people in this community, listening to people in this community. I'm really open to changing perceptions based on new information and collaborating on solutions. A couple other things that I'd like to do as a council member is lobby the province hard about subsidizing oil and gas. Same with the federal government, because that's what's making projects like this affordable. But also, in addition, pushing for corridor transit and healthcare improvements in our community. So yeah, SquamishGreenlaw.ca is my website for more information, and vote on October 15th because democracy dies in darkness.
As we conclude, I would first like to thank our hosts, the Squamish Nation, whose traditional territory includes the District of Squamish. I would also like to thank all the organizers for putting together this event and making tonight possible and getting everyone informed. I encourage the audience to review candidate platforms and make the informed decision on October 15th. I promise to be a strong advocate for building an extension to the existing rec center, investing in more infrastructure, proceeding with only smart development and neighborhood planning exercises to encompass complete communities, as well as building attainable housing on public land in partnership with the province, and continuing with our climate action targets. I vow to have integrity in my decision-making, commitment to this community, and trustworthiness to all constituents. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.
All right, thank you all for coming out. I think one of the things I love most about Squamish is the passion of the people who live here. It's not like Surrey, Langley, or Squamish. People move here with an intent, and they want to embrace the community and be part of it. And that's, you feel it just being around town. We definitely have some challenges, some growing pains. Squamish has been discovered. We're going to have challenges over the next 4 years. I don't think it'll be a very easy 4 years, no matter who gets elected. But we can grow better, and we will.
I open up this evening talking about experience, the 4 years that I have on council, and the decades of covering Municipal Hall as a journalist. And I want to share that in my first couple of years at Municipal Hall, sitting in one of those chairs, I looked often to an experienced councillor. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to join me in thanking Doug Race for his long-term service as a councillor in Squamish. He's here tonight. He's here tonight because he wants to make sure he has an informed vote. Thank you, Doug, for your long-term service. And before I go, downtown needs a cap. We need to figure out how many people we can fit into the downtown. How many people can live there comfortably? How many can live there safely? How many cars can we put into our downtown? We need a neighborhood plan for that part of our community so that it's a safe place to live and shop. Re-elect John French. johnfrench.ca.
I have lived here for over 35 years in total, and have otherwise not really lost contact with my hometown. My Squamish Nation name is Eschachuat Skoke. I'm a little shy to tell you what that means, but I'm proud of it in any case. I am convinced about the three-legged stool: environment, social, economic, working together, supporting us. I believe in volunteering and in supporting volunteers, in fostering volunteers, not least among our youth. I'm a long-standing volunteer in a number of organizations and projects, and it's this experience that gives me, I hope, insights to continue to deliver in council chambers. I hope I've shown over the last council term that I work hard, listen hard, think independently, and that I have some experience and local knowledge that may be useful for the job. Thank you.
And to round out the first half of this evening, we'll have a closing statement from Adrian. Adrian, I'd like to remind you, your closing statement must be 1 minute long.
Hello again. I, along with my Squamish First colleagues, are here to offer a positive, alternative vision for our future. Our 4 policy pillars: infrastructure, pausing development and proceeding only with smart development, attainable housing for the middle class, and pursuing climate action and net zero by 2050, will set Squamish on track for a positive, inclusive, socially and physically connected community where we can all thrive together in a healthy environment. If elected, I will be a voice of reason, a straight down the middle, rational decision maker, and I will not bring ideology to politics. I will ensure and promise that I will listen to community members and community organisations who feel they have no voice with the present council.
All right, and that concludes the first half of our event. Please join me in thanking the councillor candidates for their time. It is very stressful to be sitting at the front of the room, folks, so thank you all. We are going to transition to the second half in 5 minutes. So please feel free to stand up and stretch your legs while we get the mayoral candidates up here, but don't go too far. We're kicking off in 5 minutes. All right. Thank you all very much for your continued patience. as we carry on into the second half of this evening's All Candidates meeting. We have 3 candidates for your next Mayor of Squamish. And before we get into their opening statements, I have a few logistical items. The first is that let it never be said people in Squamish don't care for local politics. You have put so many questions into Slido, it crashed. My hat off to you. So if you had a question, I'm afraid you do need to resubmit it. My faith in cue cards is not undiminished in this moment as a question mechanism. Also, one thing to note with Slido, if you see the questions already on, you can promote the ones that you want to see asked. And so the most popular questions will float to the top. So that's a feature we'd encourage you to take use of. Now, as with our council candidates, we did a draw at the beginning of the night for a speaking order, and that order will dictate the order of the opening and closing statements and the order in which we take questions from our sponsors. The closing and opening statements will be of 2 minutes for mayoral candidates. All their timelines remain the same. The first candidate in our randomly selected speaking order for opening statements is Deanna. Over to you.
Good night, good evening, everybody. Nethlin Cocklet Kwashamin, Deanna Lewis Queen Snaz, Tanachan Chachmas, Ochameos, Kahotmashol. So I said good evening to you all. My ancestral name is Cocklet, which is on the ballot. I'm very honored to have that on there this year. And my English name is Deanna Lewis, and I come from the Chachmas village that's up in the Squamish Valley. And I'm really honored to be here on behalf of our Squamish Nation. I've lived here my whole life. And I've been invested in this since before the ice ages. I can say that. But really, it is about the importance of who I am and where I come from. And the reason that we are all standing here in front of you today is that we care deeply to this place. I'm deeply rooted into this place. And even when I spoke my language to you, there's place names that come from this place that helps ground me and to do the reasons why I do the work that I do. My whole life I've been dedicated to learning our teachings that my grandfather instilled in me. It's about knowing who you are and where you come from, and you're thinking 7 generations before and 7 generations after. So how do we all live in this place together when we think about all the things that matter about protecting our water and our land? I want to bring these skills to the table that I have, this inherent right to protect. And I love everybody that's here tonight because what's you that matters, and I want to be able to listen to you. And I'll take it wholeheartedly back to our table and be able to do an educated decision for you. And that means the most important to me because I stand with you, I walk with you. I'm not in front or behind. And I want to be able to make sure that my children that are sitting here right now, every decision I make, that I'll make sure that I sleep good at night, knowing their future is bright. They're the reason I believe. 2 minutes. Thank you. OCM.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Young, and I'm running to serve Squamish as your mayor. In 2001, my family and I were looking for more community, more connectedness, and that's why we moved to the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, where we're privileged to call home. Today, I am a small business owner and a proud father of a 13 and 16-year-old. I am standing before you today as I truly believe that I can make a positive, lasting impact on this community that we live in. I want to help create sustainable, thriving Squamish where our families can afford to live, work, and play, to create a future where our children can flourish, where they can find affordable housing and jobs that pay well, to make Municipal Hall a place that is transparent, where everyone is welcome and feels heard, where everyone gets fair treatment and opportunity. If elected, I will bring change to Municipal Hall. I will ensure that council, who are elected by people, listen to the people. On day one, we will hit the ground running. Squamish First plans on investing in infrastructure, such as building a new rec center with a new swimming pool, a new sheet of ice, a downtown parkade that's multi-use, a second entrance to downtown, pausing development and only proceeding with smart development until our infrastructure and amenities catch up, to provide affordable and attainable housing for the middle class. My name is Mike Young, and I am running with the Squamish First Coalition. On October 15th, please vote Mike Young for mayor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Armin Herford. My family, thank you for the extra applause over here. I think that might have been my mother. My family's been here for generations, and I've been hard at work over the last 4 years to continue to make this place somewhere that could be home for you and yours. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight to engage directly with the democratic process. During the lead up to this election, Squamish has seen an unprecedented amount of money being spent on attacks and disinformation, clearly aimed at disrupting the democratic process to unknown ends. It's through engaging in events such as this that collectively we can work through the real issues and find a way forward together, free from undue outside interference. Squamish is facing complex issues that are even more complex to resolve. There are many ways to achieve our common goals, such as affordability, sustainable growth, climate mitigation and adaptation, as well as economic prosperity. I've spent the last 4 years learning to recognize not only the problems, but also the opportunities to positively affect them. In addition to being a founding member of SORCA 30 years ago now, being a lifelong volunteer at Squamish Days and running a local business for the last 15 years, and being a lifetime renter, during my time on council, I've held positions on the library board, the regional district, and the newly formed Affordable Housing Society. This unique mix of lived experience, business experience, and elected official experience come together to make me Squamish's best choice for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates. We're now going to turn to questions from our partner organizations, and one advantage of having only 3 people on the stage as opposed to 10 is that we can hear from all of the candidates on the same question, and we'll have a better sense of where they align and where they may differ. So for the first question, I'm going to turn to Jeremy Roche, the Vice Chair of Tourism Squamish.
Thank you. The basis of the short-term rental restrictions that came into effect in November 2020 was that a reduction in short-term rental availability would result in an increase in long-term rental availability for Squamish residents. When the new restrictions came into effect, short-term rental availability dropped by 1/3, or 280 units from 2019 to 2021, while accommodation occupancy and average daily rate has surged. Tourism Squamish has recently conducted research that indicates that only 16% of short-term rentals have returned to the long-term rental pool. What's your position on short-term rentals, if elected, and would you revisit the district's STR policies?
And we'll take these questions in the same order as our opening statements. So, Deanna, over to you.
Thank you. As a renter myself, I just wanted to express that in every election that we've had here in Squamish, I've inserted myself to exercise my vote and my right. And I've been a renter my whole life, and I've had to change my address every time. So this affects me every day. And I do know that we have so many people that come into our town for in the different seasons. And so I would really want to be able to research and update and really get the right people in the room to make some healthy decisions, because it does affect all of us. We all know people that come here to play and rock climb and bike and do all those fun things out on our water, like kiteboarding and stuff too. But also that they don't have anywhere to live. And so they come here. And because they know it's a safe place. And so we need to find...
Thank you, Deanna. That is done.
Okay, thanks.
Squamish is a tourist destination. We do not have enough room nights currently to keep up with the demand. I, if elected mayor, would agree to revisit the short-term rental bylaw. I think that the community is responsible for providing support to our tourism industry. And until we can receive more hotels, build more hotels and campgrounds, we need to revisit the short-term rental bylaw to make it less taxing to the community and more lenient rather than the restricted policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important that we acknowledge that short-term rental policy is neither the solution for affordable housing nor for the tourism industry. My choice is housing first for people to live and work in town. Furthermore, the short-term housing policy is reviewed annually. It was late last winter, and it will be at the same timing this year for the upcoming council. And at that time is appropriate to look at all the factors and see whether it should be further relaxed, I guess, restrictions relaxed from some perspectives, or if it should stay where it is. And that'll be the time to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates. I'd like to invite Catherine Webster, Vice President of the Squamish Chamber, with the next question.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My question is in relation to transit. How will you develop and fund a local and regional transit system? And in addition to public transportation, how would you support businesses that provide alternative forms of transportation?
Transportation is one of our biggest issues here. We're so spread out, and there's so many different users that live and work and play here. They come for different reasons as well. I actually have an initiative with my own Squamish Nation about tackling this issue. We have funding. We want to be able to work together in partnership and to protect our women and children and people that are out on our roads, and especially through the extreme weather that we have here. And so I'm a doer, I'm a decision maker, and I want to be able to make sure that we can come up with solutions. I've saw other provinces, even in the North Vancouver, talking about working together about tackling this issue. So thank you.
We need to continue to work with the province and establish a regional transportation program. We need to make the local transportation more convenient for our residents to use. We need to expand the schedule and the service levels. The second part of the question was employers. So we need to look for new commercial developments to install bike lockers, change rooms that will focus on getting our employees and our community out of the car, into transit, and on bikes. Thank you.
Is it possible to have the question one more time, just to make sure I get the points?
How would you develop and fund local and regional transportation? And how would you support businesses that support alternative transport options?
Thank you. In Greater Vancouver, TransLink is funded substantively through the gas tax, 18 cents a litre. That sets the trading price for fuel that we all know that we often exceed in Squamish. That is money that is left on the table, and we need that money from the province. They have the lever to do that. With those funds, we can fund regional transit and fund our already planned aggressive local transit expansion that is already in our 5-year financial plan. As to setting the table and helping those private providers, it's a fine line. A municipality cannot directly assist business, but we can set the table and we can find ways to help facilitate what they're doing. And I'm looking forward to exploring every possible option to make these things happen. Thank you very much.
And for our next question, I'm going to turn the mic over to, well, I'm not, Carrie's going to, Eddie Carter from the Downtown Squamish Business Improvement Association.
Thank you. Although we have seen rapid growth in our neighborhoods, we still face, we being businesses, particularly a labor shortage. How would you help increase the labor force in Squamish?
Yeah, just like I heard just now, affordable housing for everybody. And that livability piece as well, because there is a draw here to work here, because there's a lot of outdoor recreation jobs as well. Whose alarm's on? I hear that. But also be able to come up with an actual plan, and to have, I got it. Can you I lost my thought there. Can you ask me one more time?
Yes, the question is, how would you help increase the labor force in Squamish?
Yes. I think it's about getting out there, talking to the people that are in need of work, actually, and be able to work with partnerships and working with developments, and actually being able to, our Squamish Nation actually has these things in place where when you have businesses that are coming here, that they have a trade center, and they encourage and recruit people through that way. And so it helped see that we could do those action plans applied the same way. So thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. That is time.
Squamish, like the rest of Canada, is experiencing a severe labor shortage. Part of the problem is because we don't have affordable, attainable housing for our workers. We need to continue to work towards building purpose-built rentals, middle housing for our workers, and make sure that those that are growing up in Squamish can stay here and afford a home in the place where they grew up. Thanks.
Thank you. The founding of the Squamish Affordable Housing Society, or Squamish Community Housing Society, is an instrumental part to tackling this problem. This is an organization that is now tasked with working on affordable housing 40 hours a week, week after week, and this has not happened prior to this. I'm proud to have been the founding chair of that. I've just handed it off to Mr. Kirby in the back of the room, is taking the reins moving forward. And it's the creation of affordable housing that is going to drive our ability to do so many things, including to house workers. How we secure those through this community amenity contribution policy, which is already under review and will come early on in this new mayor and council's term, and that's where we leverage more units for that society to manage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to have one last question from our sponsors, and then we'll be opening the floor to questions. I see people lining up the microphones already. I see people moving to the exit. I guess they've made up their minds already. Well done on the opening statements, folks. Stephen, over to you for your question.
Same question as we asked the council candidates. We would like to know the kinds of interests that you have in your town, whether they be businesses, foundations, organizations, institutions, or anything that you have a vested interest in, and how you would address any perceived conflicts of interest with those. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, and it does cultural awareness sensitivity training. And I have no conflict of interest there at all, because I'm my own boss there, and I can put that on hold. But I would like to utilize those at the council table in a lot of discussions. But I also coach soccer. I have an association called the Squamish Youth Thunder Soccer Association that travels all through spring and summer to tournaments. And that's creating a healthy environment for our students. And also, I am an avid baseball player and soccer player myself, so I'm highly involved in our community. But I'm also a kayak guide, and I do medicinal plant walks through Stanley Park and all through our territory through the City Sky Corridor. And so I have a lot of knowledge that could come to that table when we're discussing a lot of issues.
Thank you very much, Deanna. That is time.
I have a property management company that I started in 2006. We manage strata corporations within our community. Right now, over 60% of the residents in Squamish live in strata-type living. We are contracted to work for strata corporations. We're not contracted to work for developers. Many of you in this room live in strata corporations, and we work with the elected strata council in order to fulfill the duties of the strata corporation. In addition to that, we are licensed through the province. We are held to some of the highest professional standards in the province. We are expected to adhere to those standards and to ensure that we are not in a conflict and are not just within our role as...
Thank you very much, Mike. That is time.
Hello. I own Republic Bicycles in Brackendale. A couple times throughout my 4 years serving as a councillor, there's been some decisions around that property or the property directly adjacent that's owned by the same landlord, and I've recused myself from those. Over the last 4 years, I don't recall another way. Oh, there was one where a developer requested a quote for 10 e-bikes or something, and I had to recuse myself from discussion around that development while that ran its course, but that's it, and I trust the colleagues left in the room to make good decision, and I'm happy to step out, and I always err on the side of caution in these matters. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, candidates, and thank you very much for our sponsors. We're going to open up to questions from the floor, and that will also break our kind of same three speakers in the same order into something a little more fluid. I'm going to start with the gentleman at the back because, if I'm not mistaken, you were standing at the mic when I had to close the last session off, so it just seems fair to have the first question to you.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. It's regarding the proposed four-season mountain resort north of Squamish. If the province were to approve such a four-season mountain resort, would you be in favor of that resort being within the boundaries of Squamish or outside of the boundaries of Squamish?
And sorry, to whom are you directing this question?
I was under the impression that the mayoral candidates all got the question.
Okay, all of them? Very good. Just want to make sure. Okay, we're going to go in just reverse order to change things up a little bit. So Armand, I'm going to pass this one to you first.
Thank you. Regarding the Garibaldi at Squamish development, firstly, I haven't seen a proposal that I'd feel comfortable supporting in general. Secondly, to your question around if it is approved by other orders of government, should it be within or without our boundaries? We've been here for over an hour and a half discussing and just scratching the surface of the issues inside of our boundaries. So before we go and get involved in building essentially another town up on the mountain 14 kilometers from here, I think we have a lot of work to do within our boundaries, and that's where we should focus our energies. Thank you.
The District of Squamish has sent back concerns about this project with regards to infrastructure, how it's going to be serviced before bringing it into our growth boundary. I don't support Garibaldi at Squamish right now, and I'm not opposed to it either. We need to get all of the information. We need to have these concerns answered before we can move forward with the decision. We also need to consult our community and make sure that they are in support as well.
Thank you for the question. This question's been asked a lot through my time going around talking to people. And for my own community. And I have some of my family sitting in this audience today that are totally opposed to Garibaldi at Squamish. We have 4 resorts in our own territory right now. And we're talking about trap lines and protection of our environment. We need a proper environmental assessment. And that, so I am absolutely opposed to the project. Thank you.
All right, and carrying on with questions, I have a question from our roving microphone with Carrie.
Just a minute. Thank you. Okay. There we go. Good evening. My name is Nelson Winterburn. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Squamish Senior Society, and I want to ask the question, how will you support the seniors' initiatives that came out of the
survey that was done nearly 2 years ago now. There was a lot of time spent. Most of it was analyzed by staff. They didn't bother involving too many of the seniors. So what I would like each of you to do is to comment on how you're going to include the seniors in part of the Squamish society. Thank you.
So another question for all of our candidates, and we'll take this one in reverse order as well. So Armand, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I think our community has a lot to contains a lot of knowledge that needs to be incorporated into decision making. So I've always felt that we could do a better job of harnessing that potential through either specific working groups or advisory committees, depending on what's appropriate for the task at hand. And it's creating those tables where it's not performative to take the feedback and do nothing with it, but to actually see, regardless of the group, their input reflected in the policy going forward. And that's something that I hope to achieve as mayor. Thank you.
Speaking to numerous community groups and residents of Squamish, one of the biggest complaints that I'm receiving is that people, while they may be being heard, they're not being listened to. We are reaching out to community groups, community members, and people and asking them for their input, and then we are not taking that input and putting it into action. For example, the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood. Those people have spoken loud and clear that they do not want densification to their neighborhood, and we need to listen to them. If we're going to ask for community engagement, we have to ensure that we are listening to our community. Thank you.
Our elders are our most precious gift. They're our knowledge holders. And I do believe that we need to be able to make sure that if we treat them with respect and honesty and kindness and compassion, that we look after them and hear them and consult with all of them, because not every senior has been met properly, and be able to come together and come up with some solutions together. And I really want to make sure that I can do that, because I hold you in the highest regard. Thank you.
Carrying on from questions from the floor, from our forward microphone, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Oakes. I'm the Executive Director with House on Women's Center Society, and my question today is around community enrichment grants. Over the past several years, our communities have grown substantially, and the community enrichment grant has not met the pace with which we're delivering services. How would you channel funding into the community enrichment grant, ensuring that the agencies doing the work of supporting our most vulnerable are well funded?
Thank you very much for that question. Again, is that to everyone? All right, then we'll continue in our reverse order and we'll flip it on the next one. So Armand, we'll start with you.
Thank you. As our community grows, the funding for these initiatives should grow in proportion to that. And if that has gotten out of balance, as we're hearing from our speaker that it has, then that needs to be considered going forward. So one of the things with increasing with having the high rate of growth that we have is we are increasing our tax base, and this wealth should be shared with the agencies doing work where they need the support. So that's something that needs to be addressed, and let's set about doing that. Thank you.
I agree that at budget time, we need to look at all the items that we're being asked for. We need to ensure that we are providing funding for the organizations and the vulnerable that need it, including youth sports, seniors, and the most vulnerable. I think we should relook at the policy at next budget time and ensure that those community members and those that are providing services are funded properly.
It does come down to budgets and really taking a clear look at it and of those issues. I'm a mother myself, and I know how to write grants too. And be able to make sure that we can find those dollars. They're there. There's so much money out there that we can be tapping into and I would be able to really push this initiative. Thank you for that question. Thanks.
Okay, I'd like to thank all of you who are standing. I'm going to impose on you slightly because I know everybody else is diligently trying to break Slido a second time. So I'm going to go over to the screen for our top question, and the question happens to be for Mike, which is convenient because the only other order I can think of is to just start going right to left across the stage. So we're going to do that. So Mike, top question there is for you. I'll read it as best I can from here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But you are promising about $200 million in infrastructure investments. How do you propose to cover the price of these campaign promises?
Money tree. Now, the Squamish First Coalition is looking at increasing our CAC policy, community amenity charges, so developers are investing in our infrastructure. Too often, developers get away with contributing very little to our infrastructure, including the development in Garibaldi Springs. That development contributed just over $300,000, and they're building multiple townhomes, duplexes, and row homes. We need to make sure that developers are paying their fair share. In addition to that, the province and the feds have lots of grant money available. They are pushing affordable housing, and we will work with the province and the feds to build affordable housing, and in turn, they will provide some funding for these services, plus LNG and forts.
Thank you very much, Mike. That is time. Ooh, we have a rebuttal.
With all due respect to the previous speaker, the issues at Brennan Park and the need for our recreation facilities and our facilities in general have been a high priority for multiple councils. The CAC policy is under review. There is nowhere near enough money to meet this $200 million budget. No way.
Okay, just looking if we're going to see a rebuttal on rebuttal. How deep can we go? I'm going to move up to cards now, and I have a question for Armand as we move across the stage. Armand, the question is, what will you do to support marine access and wind sports?
Thank you. We've come through a summer where we've had unprecedentedly low access to our waterfront, and it hasn't been easy. I'm looking forward to the new parks that are coming online down at the waterfront and at Sea and Sky. It's going to greatly increase our water access, and the issue at the Spit and addressing issues of management in the wildlife management area is something that is very important. There needs to be a new governance structure there so that the federal government and the provincial government can come to the table with us to make these improvements there and future planning to make sure there's access, which doesn't currently exist because the municipality has little to no leverage there. Thank you.
Okay, and a cue card question for you, Deanna. The question is, do you support sprawling out for new development or impacting or changing existing neighborhoods? Oh, sorry, correction, I misread that. The question is, do you support sprawling out for new development rather than impacting or changing existing neighborhoods?
Hi. So I think that we have to do a proper assessment defining our neighborhoods, always defining our boundaries as well, but also be able to put a hold on some things and really come together as a community and ask these questions, what is important, and be able to, because we do need affordable housing. We need to be able to build up. We need to be able to make sure that we have definitions of what our community could look like. And I've talked to I've been at workshop with reimagining our cities and how we could all live together in certain areas, and you wouldn't know if it was social or 30% below market value. We can do this. It's happening in other places like Vienna and stuff. We got to think outside the box. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the folks who have been patiently waiting at the microphone, thank you very much. We're going to go from the rear mic and then the front mic. So, to you, sir, in the hat.
Hello, my name is Robert Forsyth. I started the Squamish rental group on Facebook and the job seekers group. I've been running these groups for about 10 years now, so you know that my passion is trying to keep affordability, rent low. And since I feel that we've been taking advantage as our community at the pump for the gas, I'm glad that you guys brought that up. But I noticed recently that we're getting taken advantage at the grocery store. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on our current situation for food security, and if you have any immediate or long-term goals to reduce the cost of living for our community, other than just the things that we're seeing on your brochures. Like, do you actually have anything meat behind it, like any actual plans or goals or initiatives to actually reduce the cost of living for our community members? Because gas is like $1.30 a pound, $1.30. You know, it's getting expensive, and that's going to contribute to our food costs increasing as well.
Okay, thank you for your question. In 45 seconds, can you maybe tighten that question up a little bit? Because that's a really tall order for anybody to answer in that short time that we have for people.
Do you have any ways of actually reducing the cost of living for our community members?
There we go. What would you do to take down the cost of living if elected? Mike, we're going to start with you.
That's a tough question. I know that the current council has been struggling and efforting to keep the tax increase as low as possible. We can continue to support the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood, who have lots of gardens and food sources there, so that they can continue to grow their own produce and save money that way. We also have community gardens that are being put in place. There's new community gardens down behind Park House on Bailey Street. There is a plan to put $60,000 worth of community gardens from the Garibaldi Springs development. Other than that, I'm sorry, I don't have any more solutions at this time.
Thank you. I believe we spent quite a bit of time tonight talking about housing affordability and the creation of the community housing society, as well as reviewing the CAC policy to make sure that we get affordable units. So I'll move on from that bit, which is a very important bit, and I could talk about that all night. Secondly, we have a lot of advanced transit investment coming on in the next few years that will help make it less expensive to move around the community, and ideally make it so that a higher percentage of your trips can be accomplished by transit. Also, we need to make sure that we're not developing our land exclusively for housing, and make sure we're adding employment spaces so that we can continue to attract jobs that will pay a decent wage, so that we can actually match those wages to the expenses of living in our community. Thank you.
So the cost of living in Squamish, when we talk about livability, we got to rethink how we do business, how we live, and how we be able to stop our carbon footprint and like really look at it. So when you're talking about when you're building green spaces in your building. We see beautiful examples of it in the Garibaldi Estates area. Our Squamish Nation have gardens in their areas as well. And we could be doing more partnerships together, working with programs that you have going as well. So I really thank you for that as well. And being able to reimagine our living spaces and how we get through here. So thank you for that.
And gentleman at the mic in the front, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Singh Biln, and next year it'll be my 60th year in Squamish, and I've loved every minute of it. I've gone through 16 councils, voted for 14 of them, and I think a dozen or so mayors probably voted for 10 of them. This is my first debate, and attending the first debate. And the reason is I have some concerns. I think the district does not treat everybody fairly. I think the council does not represent everybody in the community, and I think the council is divided. Hence, the community is divided. We need a leader like Obama, not like Trump. So my question to each of the mayoral candidates is, what leadership qualities do you bring to keep the 6 councillors and yourself together, united rather than divided? Thank you.
What a question.
45 seconds, right?
Yeah, any in 45 seconds. But I'd like to just reverse the order and we'll go from my right to my left. So Deanna, would you mind taking this one first?
Yes, thank you. I think we're stronger together. We all have our different backgrounds. I'm standing before you as an Indigenous woman. And to be able to have my voice heard at this table for the first time ever on a council would be so important, because I have always saw all the beautiful multiculturals that are here and the different work of the different kind of people. I don't even like the word middle class, because I feel like we all have those commonalities and the same struggles. And so be able to listen and honor the different values that each have at the table, we're stronger together. And we can tackle a lot of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Municipal government is unique in our orders of government. We don't have government and opposition. We have a broad range of perspectives at the table, and it takes a lot of thought and a lot of understanding to find the common ground and then build out from there, so that our decisions actually reflect the broad cross-section of the community that's put us there. And as an elected official, it is important to remember, and I keep this front of my mind, that I am there to represent everyone, including the people that didn't vote for me. And I'll continue to keep that ethos in mind as I go forward as your mayor for the next 4 years.
As local government, we need to make sure that we're listening first to our community, those people that put us in office, and the people that are wanting to be heard. We also need to work as a council in collaboration to solve the problems. We need to be respectful of everybody's views and opinions on different topics. Just because I'm a property manager does not make me in conflict of interest. Over 60% of our community lives in strata corporation. I am the person that understands what you are going through on a day-to-day basis. I understand what works within your community, your tiny community of your strata corporation, and we need input on council to represent the majority. I represent, or I work with, over 60% of the public here in Squamish. So I think we need to work together, respect everybody's opinion, and make the decision that's in the best interest of Squamish.
Thank you very much, Mike. That's time. I have to go to the rear microphone for a question from the young man waiting patiently there.
Hello, and I have a question for Mike Young. So the question is, if you get voted for mayor, what changes will you make to the recreation center?
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. It's very important, and that our youngsters understand the process and have input into the process. Our plan is to build a new rec center, which includes a new swimming pool, second ice rink, all-purpose fields, and place for everyone. Brennan Park is a hub for our community and must be shared with everyone. The young, the old, the accessible, the people with disabilities can come here and meet. There should be a place for the arts, our culture, and our heritage. We need to focus on our rec center that's 44 years old and is due for replacement. While I understand that there is a plan to build out, I think we need to make it a priority. Our rec center has been falling.
Thank you very much, Mike. That is time. Going to take one more question from the floor. Sir, at the front microphone.
My name is Alan Robertson. I'm a senior, perhaps obviously. I live in and pay property taxes to the city of Squamish. I refer to I refer to the report that appeared in the September 8th edition of the Chief under the heading West Winds, now a seniors hub. I understand that the city entered into a lease of the West Winds facility at a cost to the taxpayers of $400,000. When we have been hearing for years that the 55 plus is underutilized, and on top of that, the city did so without consulting the Squamish Senior Society regarding the use or even the suitability of the West Winds facility, the society learning about the lease only after it had been entered into. My question is directed to Mr. Herford. Mr. Herford, I think your background and your knowledge, experience is a great asset to Squamish, but I have this question. Does the decision of council with respect to the West Winds lease, taken at a time when you were on council, I believe, reflect your view of what is a responsible use of taxpayers' money? And I'm referring to the $400,000, over 10 years, I admit. And your view, or the view you have of your regard to the senior society. Just ignore them? Thanks very much.
I'm going to do my best to address this complicated question in 45 seconds. We have pressures with our recreational facilities. We've heard that here today. One of the creative ways to decrease the pressures is to increase our programmable space. The opportunity there presented itself to increase the programmable space, specifically for seniors, inside a specifically built seniors affordable housing building, and it looked, and I believe it was a great opportunity to do that responsibly with our tax dollars without making a $200 million promise we can't actually deliver on. 55 also needs efficiency, so more efficiency with the space that we have and increasing the space that is available to us to program responsibly, and I think we did that there. Thank you. I'd love to engage with you further to more than 45 seconds.
Thank you very much. I have to say, if the feedback I get at the end of the night is 45 seconds is not enough time, I will be glad that we finally succeeded in getting away from not enough questions from the audience to a new problem we have to fix. I am going to jump in and ask a question from the board, partly because this is my 5th all candidates meeting that I've moderated, and this question gets asked every single time, and I've come to love it. But at this time, I get to hear all candidates speak about it. So I'd like to ask all the candidates, how would you advocate for a public regional transportation system that would connect the communities up and down the corridor? Lower Mainland, Whistler, Pemberton, Squamish. I just love it so much. So we have heard some answers on this, but I would like to know, what specifically would you do, if elected, to pursue this goal? We've talked about it for many years now. How would you start? Deanna, we'll start with you.
Well, transit and public transportation is very, very near and dear to us all. When I talk about murdered, missing Indigenous women from my own communities, but being able to get the right people in the room to make sure we tackle this issue, make it a priority, make it that when we do have any businesses that are coming here, we address it and put money on it and find that money. It's so important. I think that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. This work of advocacy already has a framework that involves the municipality, the District of Squamish, the Resort Municipality of Whistler, as well as Pemberton, and the Lillooet Nation and the Squamish Nations. There's already a group doing this work, and it is important and it needs to continue. And like much of the work that a municipal government does, it takes a long-term look at it to continue to have that pressure. Earlier I spoke about about accessing the funds for the gas tax. That is crucial, but there is a framework there, and I look forward to stepping into the large hole that Mayor Elliott left when she left with their leadership and to continue to advance those goals frustratingly by the province. But
we as mayor and council need to stop making excuses. We're making excuses as to why we have yet to build a second sheet of ice. We've been promising the community a second sheet of ice and an upgraded Brennan Park for years. We need to work with the province to get this deal done. We need to partner with them to show them what's important to our community. That's moving into the bus. The bus is a joint program with the region, the municipalities affected, as well as the province. If we work with the province to get the affordable housing built, we can work with them to get regional transportation done. This has been talked about for the last 4 years.
The district recently has done some wonderful job staffing the environment department. Thank you, Mary Ellett and Armand and current council. So what I would like to ask you all is if you think that you could commit to giving equal weight in your decision making to the technical advice that comes from your environmental staff as opposed to just your planning and engineering staff. Could you weight equally the technical advice from your environmental staff?
Thank you very much for that question. So inviting a commitment to have equal weight the technical advice as from other arms of the staff, and any other comment you'd like to give on the matter, and in the same order, Deanna, we'll start with you.
I think the staff have a deeper knowledge to this issue, and so I would definitely commit to listening to them, but also having all players at the table with community involvement as well, and then as a council as well, having all those same people in the room and be able to honor and listen to those experts, listen to the needs and the importance of it. So I would definitely respect it. Thank you.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the question asker for recognizing the expertise of the staff at the district. We do have some great staff. As reports come forward to council, you're absolutely right. There's different departments will comment on them, and often mayor and council are there to untangle the bits where they overlap. And over the last 4 years, I believe my voting record would show that I've erred on the side of the environment when those things do overlap, and I would continue to do that work and listening to our expert staff at the district. Thank you.
I agree that the environment is something that we should consider in every decision that we make. If council and staff is not listening to advice from the experts, that's where we're missing. We need to listen to advice from the community, the experts at hand, and not focus on the will of the district to force an issue on people. We need to make sure that we're listening to all community partners, particularly those stewards of our environment.
Thank you very much. And from the forward microphone.
My name is Patricia Marini. I want to ask all of you how you feel about renting a city hall or building one. What would you advocate for? And my vote will depend on your answer, because it's better to own than rent.
Well, it's pretty clear which answer gets a vote on that one. And well, I'm going to change up the order again. Mike, we're going to start with you here.
I, similar to Rajan, support building a new municipal hall. The new municipal hall will be built in conjunction with the school board. We'll put 2 levels of parking, and on top of that, 4 levels of office space. I do not agree with renting a municipal hall, and I, like you, Patricia, think it's better to own.
Armand?
Thank you. There's a very important document called the Real Estate and Facilities Master Plan that outlines how all of our facilities can be replaced in a reasonable time frame, including Brennan Park and including the municipal offices or City Hall. If the mayor and council was to come forward with a $100 million project, which we've just described, to build a new City Hall, I think it would be important for the taxpayer to know that every possible option was explored, including leasing. The discussion right now is exploring leasing and exploring the construction so that we as a community can weigh those two options. So I think it's due diligence on both sides, whether we're leasing or building, to look at both options, and a decision is yet to be made. Thank you.
Thank you. I would think that having a municipal hall, I definitely know that it needs upgrades, as well as our school board office, our libraries. We can be doing more together on funding. Put them together. I saw other towns that have a library and their municipal hall together. And you talk about parking and other spaces to really utilize that space. I do also agree that it could be owned, because we need to be able to put as many people in there and have the best use for it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm mindful of our time, so I have time for one more question from the floor, and we have someone who's waiting patiently at the back. I'm very sorry, gentleman in the white t-shirt. The question just occurs to you right at the end. What happens to me is it occurs to me as I walk out the room. However, the election isn't over yet. We have another just under 2 weeks to go, and so there will be other opportunities where these candidates will be out trying to hear your concerns and solicit your vote. So I would encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities where they arise. Now, yes, please, for our last question of the night.
Hi, I believe 2 out of the 3 candidates have experience on a council. But Mike, do you think it's okay to run for mayor and completely skip the knowledge gained and experience from being on a council?
I have tremendous governance experience. I work in small communities on a daily basis. I understand the way that governance works, maybe on a smaller scale than a municipality, but the idea and the concept is the same. We need to make sure that we listen to our community, that we collaborate and work together. I've also sat on various boards in Squamish with similar experience. I've been on the downtown BIA, I've been with Squamish Community Services and Squamish Hospice as well. While I do not have any direct municipal in-council chambers experience, I do have the experience and I can lead this community.
All right, well, thank you all very much for your questions. As is always the case, we could go on another 3 hours. But although we have the questions to do so, I'm not sure we all have the stamina to do so, and I also am mindful that the candidates are having a much rougher time than any of the rest of us here. So what I'm going to do is invite our candidates to give their closing statements, and then we will close for this evening. We'll go in the same order that we randomly selected at the beginning of the night, so that means, Deanna, the floor is yours for a closing statement.
Thank you. I believe that I'm running for the right reasons. I've been trained my whole life to do this. As a council member for my Squamish Nation, I want to bring those tools to the table in a good way, in an authentic way. And my job is to listen as mayor. My job is to bring it to the table and be able to come up with solutions and be able to bring it back and explain why we made those decisions. I don't take that lightly, and I don't have all the answers tonight. I feel like I fumbled all this up. But I have great intentions, and I was very nervous because I respect all of you that's in this room, and you're here because it matters to you. So I really do thank you for that. And as a person in general, I really want to make sure that I can uphold it and sleep well at night, because I know our ancestors are watching us, and I want to make sure that all people are represented well. Our youth, our elders, our people that are walking this earth, living, working, and playing here, that we all have a right to do all those things. and I want to come up with solutions. I don't have all the answers, but I want to get all the right people in the room to move forward together. So thank you.
This is an extremely important election for Squamish. The new council will make decisions on community contributions and tax rates for the WLNG project, the Fortis pipeline, and the direction of our new housing authority. We only get one chance, and we must get this right. Our failing infrastructure needs to be prioritized. We need a new rec center, a second entrance to downtown, and a multi-use parking facility. Development needs to be paused until our amenities and our infrastructure catches up. And we need to build attainable housing for our community. I will ensure that the voices of Squamish residents no longer fall on deaf ears, that public consultations are fair and not skewed to support the district's agendas. I will bring ethics and transparency back to Municipal Hall. I will apply my unwavering work ethic and focus to achieve results and deliver my vision and goals. I will not be weighed down or held back by bureaucracy, the status quo, expensive consulting studies, or red tape. I am Mike Young, and I am running to be your mayor for the Squamish we love. On October 15th, vote for change. Vote for Mike Young and the Squamish First Coalition.
Thank you. And thank you again for coming out tonight to participate in this important event at this very important time. I'd like to take a moment to talk about how things do happen. A little bit earlier, I got a little fired up and railed that it was an impossibility. It's not, we don't have impossibilities. We have possibilities if we all come together, but it takes planning, and it takes prioritization, and it takes a long-term commitment to execute these things. To fully understand, for instance, the difference between what would happen if we had to decide to purchase or lease. What are the of municipal halls? What are the trade-offs? What does that do to our other goals around Brennan Park, around the library? These are very, very important things, and it takes long-term planning and thoughtful execution to do that. I've been at the council table for the last 4 years doing just that, and I look forward to seeing the results of another 4 years being there as your mayor, working hard on your behalf in a mindful way, in a controlled way, achieving our goals together. Thank you very much for coming out tonight, and thank you in advance for your vote as mayor. Thank you.
All right, well, our MLA, Jordan Sturdy, once observed to a class of mine that an election was a very long, very brutal job interview with many, many, many bosses. And with that in mind, I would like to thank all of the candidates, not just for their time this evening, but for volunteering so much of their time during this election campaign, and for those who win, so much of their time in the next 4 years when they will be asked questions in the frozen food aisle of the grocery store about their voting record, for volunteering in the service of their community. No matter which of you wins, all of you have strengthened our community just by doing this, by making it possible for us to have a choice. And I thank you for that now. I would also like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It was a capacity crowd at one point. It's hot and stuffy and people are making for the exits, and I understand. A lot of people treat politics like it's a four-letter word, but it is a good thing. It is a necessary thing. It is how we come together as a community to define what we want the community to look like and how we're going to make the tough choices to get there. And you have the important job now of deciding who is going to be at the forefront of making those choices. So if you have even one candidate that you want to see elected, go vote. I was reminded by somebody at the break that you don't need to fill a full ballot. If you have one person you want to see, go vote. Put one X by one name. Put two X's by two names. 3 by 3 names. If you can fill the whole thing, great. You can't vote for all of them. That doesn't count. But go vote. There are people who are fighting and dying right now for the privilege that we so often take for granted to choose who will govern us. Please take advantage of that privilege and go vote on October 15th. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.